So there are things that are going on that are beyond your perception that we can see, whether it's through some of our molecular biomarkers, whether it's, again, our brain analysis, like a lot of the stuff that we can see. Other ones that are common are things like muscle strength, muscle performance. People don't realize how telling those can be over your overall physiological health, but you don't necessarily see them. A really easy example is most people are somewhat aware that grip strength is an incredibly important predictor of, in fact, there's a really cool paper. It's titled something like grip strength is an indispensable marker of aging. Something like that, right? Which is basically saying like you can't not pay attention to grip strength. And we've actually published a paper last year, and Tommy Wood from the University of Washington, neuroscientist, led this project. And we've got a couple of them going. But one of the things we found there is we can actually predict Alzheimer's and dementia risk via grip strength testing. And strongly, we actually have a project right now that we validated in the UK Biobank, which is 500,000 people or so. We validated it in the American equivalent, which is called NHANES. We can actually predict muscle quality from 4 blood markers. And we can also predict the risk of dementia as well from those 4 basic biomarkers. And those are also directly tied to grip strength. And so looking at things like that is saying, okay, you have some potential signs of either short-term or long-term physiological stress that's happening, and you don't necessarily feel it yet because you're 35 or 45 and you don't feel super weak, but we're seeing these early signs. One other example of that, and I'll caution to say that there's only been one paper on this. So in science, that's a way of saying, yeah, we'll see. Okay, but just as one example, this paper came out last year and it showed that the asymmetry in your grip strength, so the difference in strength between your right and left hand, is actually an early predictor of neurological decline. And the reason is, think about this, in order for your muscles to contract, they have to be sent a signal from your central nervous system, your brain and brainstem. And if you're having significant asymmetries from one side to the other, and by this they meant over 10%. So if you have a grip strength of 40 kilos on the right hand, 10% of that would be 4 kilos. So if your left hand is 30 kilos, that's way more than 10% difference. That may be an early sign of early denervation of that left side. And so neurologically, potentially losing ground there. So just things like that are things we're able to detect that says, hey, we're seeing things that are putting stress on your system, whether you realize that or not. And so they can be these molecular biomarkers, but they can also be other things that people just either don't have the technology or they don't know how to, or they're not aware that can give you tremendous insights into the overall stress. As scientifically we call this allostatic load or allostasis. But that's the marker we're after ultimately.
And in the case of grip strength, I find that so fascinating because I was reading about that in your work a while ago. That it could also be the case that I've just trained one side.
Totally.
It's
if you've trained one side, then then if you've only gone after one side, you've done either a sport or you have a lifestyle or an occupation that is really one side dependent.